Well, hi there. It's a little known secret, but I love skinks. A lot of the bigger skinks, like the blue-tongued skink and the pink-tongued skink, they can be very, very personable lizards. But the pretty little skinks tend to also be pretty shy. These guys, they are not. Not at all. These are honestly one of the most personable lizards I've ever seen in my whole life. And they are so incredibly beautiful. Look at these. This is an emerald tree skink, and they're amazing. They've got that very skink-like fusiform body shape, but their legs are a little bit more substantial than are most skink legs. Skinks are sort of notorious for their tiny little legs and their big torpedo-shaped bodies. These guys have got some bigger legs on them because they're arboreal lizards, and so big legs are very helpful when jumping around in the trees, not so much when squeezing in between rocks and down into holes. They've got beautiful coloration. Most of them are bright green. Both the males and the females have this bright green coloration, though that color can vary somewhat between individuals. And I want some. I think I want some a lot. Or do I? That will pretty much come down to whether or not emerald tree skinks are the right pet lizard for me right now. And that is what I'm here to try to figure out. And I guess while we're at it, we can try to figure out if the emerald tree skink is the best pet lizard for you as well. So we're going to evaluate the emerald tree skink based on our 5 categories, which are handleability, care, hardiness, availability, and upfront costs. When it comes to handleability, we give the emerald tree skink a score of 3 out of 5. They are fast lizards, and they definitely don't like to be restrained. If you do restrain them, try to grab them, there's a pretty decent chance that they can drop this little tail of theirs, and you know how much I hate that. They also could bite you if restrained. And they're little. They're little enough that they could be harmed by rough handling, and they could easily get lost while handling. So these things are definitely not ideal. Altogether, this is not a recipe for a great reptile to handle. But the reality is that they're extremely social, and they're probably going to just jump out on you fairly often. They'll also eagerly take food from you, which is pretty fun. And if it gets away from you, if it runs away from you while it's out having jumped on you, it's not going to get lost because it will probably eventually just walk right up to you. It's just sort of how they roll. And that's pretty much the case if you buy a wild-caught adult. If you can get one that's captive bred, it's probably going to be way better still. And one of the best things is, you don't really need to handle them. Certainly not any more than they insist upon. I mean, they will make you handle them from time to time, but they don't need to be handled to be thoroughly enjoyed because this is a very active, very engaging, very interactive lizard. It's fun even if you can't pick it up. When it comes to care, we give the emerald tree skink a score of 4 out of 5. They're gonna eat mostly insects, so smaller insect feeders like crickets, superworms, mealworms, small roaches. Those are gonna be excellent feeders for them, but they also need some leafy greens and some fruits. I would assume actually that crested gecko diet, especially like the crested gecko diet with insects, would probably be a great food source for baby, like hatchling lizards. Sometimes it can be hard to get babies eating on insects and things, but if you can just put a little of that on their nose and get them licking it off, that would be a great supplemental food for baby emerald tree skinks. You're going to want to provide a big enclosure. I mean, these guys are very small lizards, so it doesn't need to be astronomically large, but they will use the space. This is an active lizard. It's going to use a lot of vertical space. It'll also use horizontal space. They like to climb. They like to explore. They're busybodies. I would also recommend including a lot of live plants with these guys. Of course, you can get away with artificial plants, but live plants are just so cool, and bioactive is definitely going to be the way to go with these. Make sure you have a lot of wood and other branches like this cool spider wood upon which they can climb. They're going to be exploring and climbing all over the place if you let them. Ensure that they have constant access to clean water. This might require you to change the water every day or nearly every day because they're probably going to be climbing through it and dragging substrate into it. Just expect to change it often so they have access to clean water. They are also going to need a basking spot, which means a UVA heat lamp, and they're going to need UVB. That's going to be something you don't want to skimp on with these guys. Make sure they've got access to UVB. They need relatively high humidity, not crazy high, but you are going to need to mist them regularly. On top of that, ensure that there's good ventilation. So just because humidity needs to be high, that doesn't mean that there shouldn't be plenty of air movement going on through this enclosure. And then normal things like calcium and vitamin supplements, these are a must for these. But care is fairly routine. I mean, it's pretty much normal for a lizard, except you get some leafy greens and fruits in there that they will probably enjoy on top of insects. They're awesome. Today's video is sponsored by Ridge Wallets, and Ridge is a company that makes really sleek, really minimalistic wallets, generally probably for front carry, which is the way that I have to carry a wallet. This is the forged carbon model, which I think is particularly slick looking, and it's tough and durable, and if anything happens to it, I love this about it, they've got a lifetime warranty and free returns, so you just send it back and they will replace it for you. And it is a quality product, exactly what you think you're getting. They're pretty tough, hardcore, minimalistic wallets, and I've been carrying this Ridge wallet for a few days now, and one of the things I've found that I really like about it is that they're very customizable. And this comes with a money clip, which is super convenient if I'm carrying cash. They really thought of everything with this wallet. It's really a quality product. You're probably not going to find one much nicer than the Ridge wallet. If you decide that the Ridge wallet is the perfect pet wallet for you, make sure to check out our link at ridge.com/Clint. You can get yours today. When it comes to hardiness, we give the Emerald Tree Skink a score of 4 out of 5. These guys can live more than a decade, which is a long time for a little lizard. They do have, if you get wild-caught imports, they're going to have normal wild-caught problems. And so, if at all possible, definitely go captive bred. It's just the way to go with these guys and everything that you can buy captive bred. When it comes to availability, we give the Emerald Tree Skink a score of 2 out of 5. These guys are found all over the Philippines and Indonesia and the surrounding islands, so if you live around there, they might be everywhere. But here in the United States, they're pretty uncommon to see. They're actually doing really great in the wild. They've colonized so much of the South Pacific, but over-harvesting could be a threat to them potentially. So if they become super popular in the pet trade and nobody's breeding them, over-collecting could be a real issue for them. They're oviparous, which means they lay eggs. Actually, as do banded skinks, the Peter's banded skinks. We had some information that they may be live bearers. They look like live-bearing skinks, but they too are egg layers, and these are egg-laying skinks. A lot of skinks are not, like blue tongues. These guys are. And as I understand it, they lay pairs of eggs, almost like geckos. Like I said, allegedly these are very easy to breed in captivity, but I've actually rarely seen them captive bred. And as a result, you're not going to see them very often in pet shops. Though, I should mention, these two actually do come to us from a pet shop, which is Animal Ark in Orem, Utah. And there are a lot of things I love about Animal Ark. I know you've heard me talk about them before, but some of the things I really like that they carry some stuff that you just don't see in most pet shops, but I also love that they're putting a growing emphasis on showing off really proper housing. Being a pet shop, a lot of times their enclosures aren't as large as what you'd want at home because space is a commodity there and the animals aren't going to be there for very long. But kind of on a small scale, they're trying to show off some really excellent enclosures, and they're putting a lot of emphasis on terrarium plants and bioactive enclosures. It's a really fun place to go to gain just some really good ideas about how to set these guys up. And these are one of those lizards that you can set up in a spectacularly beautiful enclosure. Something I love about those enclosures is they give you a chance to see the animals behaving fairly naturally, and that's actually why these guys really caught my eye. I mean, right when I walked in there, they're running around, they see people, and they come towards the front, and they're like, hey, they're like puppies. Can you please take me home? Can you please hold me? And as I've researched them, that's not atypical behavior. That's how they are when they're not stressed. And golly, what fun. But generally speaking, you're not going to see these guys at pet shops. They're even very uncommon at expos. I would say your best bet is to find them online, and they're not even consistently going to be available there. You're going to have to time it right. When they're available, great. My hope is that these guys are falling into the hands of experienced skink breeders. They're supposed to be easy to breed, and if these guys can become widely available captive bred, man, what an incredible pet skink. That said, where are the babies? They're supposed to be easy to breed. I've never seen captive bred, emerald tree skinks available anywhere. If you are breeding them, please let me know. I'm in the market, as it were. When it comes to upfront costs, we give the emerald tree skink a score of 3 out of 5. The lizards are relatively inexpensive. This is largely due to the fact that they're imports or captive bred babies competing with imports. And so the cost isn't exorbitant, but they're also not cheap, not cheap like green anoles, for example. They apparently do really well in groups that are female heavy. And so if you're considering one, you might want to actually consider getting multiples. Being such a social lizard, that doesn't surprise me at all that they're going to do even better in groups than they do alone. The tank that you get should be as large as possible, really. I mean, there's a point at which they'd be so large that essentially they're living in the wild and you'll never track them down, except for when they wander over to you and jump on your head. But they're gonna use the space. They're very, very active lizards, and so the bigger space you can give them, the more floor space, the more vertical space, the better. You're just gonna see neater and neater behaviors, and they're gonna be more and more relaxed and more natural. But this can be expensive. You're also going to need some fairly expensive lighting, UVA and UVB lighting, and so that adds up. And remember, you have to replace those UVB bulbs every 6 to 12 months. Also, climbing branches. I'd recommend something that's not going to mold under humidity like Mopani wood or this spider wood. Those are great options. You're going to need a water bowl and soil that's free of fertilizers and in which hopefully plants can grow. And then you're going to need some plants, because let's make a rad bioactive enclosure, shall we? This is going to include things like hydro balls, because you're going to want to do a drainage layer in this tank. Isopods and springtails, don't forget those. Not really bioactive if you don't have a cleanup crew. Vitamins and calcium supplements, those are also going to be essential for these guys. I'd recommend a misting system, or at least a misting bottle so you can do it manually. And insect feeders, and then maybe if you get a baby especially, some crusted gecko diet. We'll have links to all these things down in the description, so if you're curious about what we recommend, they're down there. And for these reasons, we give the emerald tree skink a total score of 3.2 out of 5. I just love these guys. In conclusion, if I can find a captive bred pair or group of these guys, I'm pretty sure I'm in. But I'm only going to get wild-caught adults like these if I plan to breed them. I love the personalities on these guys. They're amazing. These guys remind me of green anoles in a lot of ways. But they're even more interactive, they're less shy, and dare I say, possibly even more beautiful than green anoles. It has to be one of the best pet lizards in the world to watch. Unbelievable. And it's a skink! I just love skinks. That's why we have a whole playlist of skinks, because they're spectacular. I adore them. Honestly, I mean, this is basically an emerald tree monitor, a green tree monitor, that's been stuffed into the body of a skink and eats like a tegu. Tiny tegu. If that's what you want, and let's face it, that's what you want. If it's not, what are you doing here? Then a captive bred emerald tree skink is probably exactly what you're looking for. And if you can provide all that it needs, then you might be the perfect pet human for it to leap onto every day of its life. As always, like and subscribe, and we hope to see you real soon. How about we climb back up on this stick? Yeah, thought you might like that. Do I look really weird with my arm like this, by the way?
That was super fast.
Despite some...
That was amazing.
Super skink. Super skink is super skinky.
Wow. Okay, can you tell them that we're not done to stay on?
We are not done. Just simmer down, guys.
Simmer
It's
down.
not over. Do you see that dual wielding?
Yeah, that was something.
They're so great. Aren't they magical?
So magical.
They might be made out of magic.
They're really pretty.
I'm in the market, as it were. My thing is I can do accents, but they come out of me. I can't. Yeah, they're not super controllable for me. There's some of them I could do. Like I could be Schmeagle, pretty sorry. But when it comes to being Jack Sparrow, that's just one that occasionally flows and most of the time doesn't. We'll work on this one.
That one's better.
As it were. I'm in the market, as it were.
There you go.
I'm in the market. There we go. Yes. It's going all over the place now. I don't even know what it is. I'm in the market, as it were.
So you're buying them, right?
Wow. Michelle, calm down.
I want them.
You want them vicariously through him.
What if I
Oh
buy
man,
one of
she
them?
is.
And it lives here?
Yeah, and you buy the other one, and we'll breed them, and I want to help.
I might be in on that. Yeah.
I really want one.
I've
This is
noticed.
my morning gecko.
But hold on,
You got
this,
so
yeah,
tripped
but this is
out.
gonna be this is gonna be here all the time.
She's got a key. She can come here whenever.
You do have a key. Thank you very much.
That's not the same as in your house.
I just like to interact with them.
What do you think's gonna happen once we start getting captive bred babies, Jason?
Yeah. Just don't tell Will.
You don't gots to know about it for a while. Till the babies start showing up at home.
Oh my goodness. I'm seriously might cry. I love you so much.
Michelle's just dying over
I'm seriously getting emotional. Like, baby goats is the only other thing that's ever done that to me where I've cried over how cute something is. Oh, goodness.
These are up there with baby goats from Michelle. I years ago, I realized that I just can't handle it anymore, sitting kind of off kilter.
What the heck just happened?
Light still out. Today's video is sponsored by Ridge Wallets.